Hello, my name is Gus Rodriguez, and this is my project for Applied Database Systems. I'm an online student, and I did the project by myself. And without further ado, we'll get into it. My project is called Electro, and it is a storefront. This is actually the expansion of a project that I did in my Python class. Originally, I had made a website with static attributes, the cart updated just in the code itself, and it would just be reset at the end of the session. So for this class, I decided to expand it and add some database functionality. So some of the tools I used, for my database, I used SQLite, and I will show that in a bit. I'll show the DB browser as well, which will give the table layout. As I said, I coded the website in Python, and I did it using Visual Studio Code, and my framework was Flask. It seemed like a pretty easy to use web framework in Python. My HTML was done in brackets, and variables were controlled by Jinja. And lastly, I used a couple of websites down here to create the ER diagrams that will be on the next slides. So a summary of my database is that there are 4 tables: products, user, cart, and categories. Products have the most attributes, simply because there's more detail required for them. They have a product ID, which is a primary key, and a category ID, which is a foreign key. So there are many products, but each product can only have one category. Thus, we have a one-to-many relationship there. And then we also have a users table, which will give the primary key of the user ID. We also store the user's email and a hash of their password. And finally, we have the cart, which is entirely made up of users and products. When a user adds a product to their cart, we update this table here, which will add the user ID and the product ID. If it's already there, which I'll show later, it updates the quantity. If it's not there, it just adds a new record for that user with the new product ID and how many they have. Because of that, cart is a weak entity, and it's a one-to-many relationship with users and products. And this is just another diagram I made. I kind of like the way this one looks a little better. It's easier for me to understand the relationships. But yeah, that's just there. And here we go. I'm going to restart this. And I'm also hosting this on the cloud. I will provide the link for that in just a moment. So this is the storefront. When you first log in, when you first open the website, this is how it is without any user logged in. The products are pretty generic, and they just flow across there. When you click here, you'll see your cart. As you can see right now, there's no cart. But if I add something, the default user is considered user ID of 0, and that will reset when the website's closed out. But now the user has an item added there. Okay. And let me also show the database. So I didn't implement user registration, even though I could add that later. I just created a couple of dummy usernames: admin with the password, admin2 with the password test. As you can see, this is automatically incremented. I did a bunch of tests, so the numbers are very different. And this is the hash of the password. Categories is just a category ID and then what category that falls under. Products contain a lot of information here. They'll have the product name, the category ID that ties back to categories, and the product ID, the cost, how many we have on hand, and this image path is just for the HTML to know where to look for its image. And then cart has the user ID that owns the cart, the product ID for which product it is, and how many belong in their cart. Okay. So I'm going to log a user in. I'll do admin password. And you can see now it gives the option to log out instead of log in. So this user is user ID 28. And as you can see, there are 7 items showing up in the cart. When we go here to the cart, we look for, let's filter it by user 28. We can see that in fact they have 7 items, 7 different items. So there's 3 of item 4, 1 of item 3 and 2, and 2 of item 1. So to show this being updated, I'm just going to add a new item. The cart updates to 8. That updated to 4. And then when I go over here back to DB browser, you can see that there are 4 of product 4, which in this case is the MSI laptop. Okay. When the user logs out, it'll bring them back to just the default homepage with nothing in their cart. I'm going to log in as the other user just to show the functionality. Admin2 test. And this user has 1 product. So again, I'll go back to the database and I'll filter it out for the other user, which is 36. So he has 1 of item 3, which should be a Mac laptop. And there we go, 1 of item 3, which is a Mac laptop. And you can check out, it'll just give you a summary of what you have. And that's where the functionality ends. So yeah, I chose to do it this way just because I feel like this is a good addition to any portfolio. I would make some changes to my code, which I did here in Visual Studio Code. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to show the queries. The queries are all controlled by the database module. And let me get some of them. So this would be to add a user, even though I didn't add registration. You would insert the user's email and password after validating that it doesn't already exist. I have a query to get the user, which is how we log people in. We'll pass the email, look for that email in the database, which is a unique value. And here I'm checking against the password. I'll check the hash of the password to see if they match. If they don't, we'll get a pop-up saying that it's invalid. If they do match, it will take you to the login page. What else do we have? So we get the categories. That's how this dropdown here is populated. We get all the categories and push them into a dropdown. This is if we're doing an individual category, which is for the filters. So if I click this, the URL takes us to filter 1, which is product ID 1 for accessories, 2, and so on and so forth. Get products just populates all the products on the home page down here. And then get products by category is how we populate the products when there's a filter. And then add to cart will select the item that we click. If the user's logged in, which is defined over on this one here. If the user's logged in, it'll pull their user ID and the product ID and then add it to their to the cart database. I'm sorry, there's a cart table. And we also have it set to update the quantity if they add another one. So if there's already a row there, as we saw with the MSI laptop, it'll just increment the quantity. And then we also have a function to remove from the cart. So if the user, I'm not logged in. The user wants to remove one, so we'll move headphones black. It'll update that to 1. And I forgot which one headphones black is. 1. So 28, 1, down to 1. Perfect. And then finally, to get the cart, just populates the cart if the user is logged in. Yeah, I feel this is a pretty good representation of my database skills as well as my web programming skills. If you have any questions, let me know, and thank you.